Leaving home in the early light of raking shadows always feels like an adventure. Let's go. I have a strong desire to miss the traffic through Montreal, so I head for Hawkesbury, then loop north into Quebec, heading for Saint-Donat-de-Montcalm. This is pleasant, easy riding through forested hills, past lakes and through small villages, with their eclectic mix of architectural styles and a plethora of balconies. Quiet roads and fine scenery get me in the mood for what I have planned, but there's no need to rush. I'm taking the long way round. If I jumped on the main highway, I could have been through Quebec City in 6 hours. Instead, it takes me all day before I reach the St. Lawrence River, a few miles west of the city. And do I care? Not at all. It's been a wonderful day. I'm heading for the Charlevoix region of Quebec, and a mountain within the Grand Jardin National Park called Mont du Lac des Cygnes, or Swan Lake Mountain. But after struggling through Quebec City, I stopped briefly at Sainte-Anne-de-Beaupré for a quick look at the fine basilica, a place of miracles apparently, and to cruise the back streets of the village. Once again I was reminded that these Quebec villages have an idiosyncratic mix of architectural styles. Heading north out of Bay St. Paul, I was closing in on the mountains, and before long was pulling into the parking lot at the beginning of the hiking trails. I was surprised to see the number of vehicles, but many Quebecers are keen on outdoor activities. On a global scale, the Charlevoix Mountains are little more than pimples. Many millions of years ago, though, they would have rivaled Everest, but time and erosion have weathered them until they're little more than stumps.
Well, that's where I'm going if my heart and lungs hold out. It's a bit of a climb, but it shouldn't be too bad. It may not look steep, but let me tell you, it is. This is hard work.
On a clear day like today, the views from the top are worth the effort. I retrace my ride back to Bay St. Paul, then along the coast to St. Simeon and the ferry across the St. Lawrence River to Rivière-du-Loup, heading for part 2 of my adventure. The river's quite wide at this point. The ferry takes over an hour to make the crossing. Then once on the other side, a short ride up the coast brought me to this motel for the night. A quick breakfast at Trois Pistoles, and I was on my way to the Gaspésie National Park and the Chic-Choc Mountains. Highway 132 runs right along the coast for almost the whole way. It'd be daft to blast on by without stopping a few times.
It's a cool wind blowing in off the water. Look at these fabulous bedded rocks here. I love it. Pretty soon this will all be covered with water right up to here. How many millions of years of successive beaches and laying down of mud and silt and sand do these strata represent? It must be countless millions.
Eventually I turn away from the coast, heading for the mountains again, and after securing my camping permit, head down the gravel road to the campsite at Lac Cascapedia. I haven't mentioned the Goldwing much. For a 32-year-old bike, it's doing just fine. Comfortable on the highway, relatively easy to handle, and perfectly competent on unpaved, potholed and washboarded gravel roads like this one. Eventually I reach the campsite, find my spot, and settle in for the evening. The trail I'm following leaves from Lac Cascapedia, heading through the forest to Mont Ernest Menard and Pic de Brûlé. These aren't the highest peaks in the Gaspésie region, but I've been promised some vigorous hiking and some fine views.
I won't pretend this isn't hard work, because it is. As I was riding into the park, just about to stop at the office, a goshawk flew across. So I figure that's a good sign.
When you live in a place where long views are hard to come by, it's a simple pleasure to get up above most of the trees and look out across the rolling stubs of mountains disappearing into the mist and the far horizon.
Well, this is pretty nice. I'm not sure whether I just was over the top of the second mountain or not. I think the path's going to go down a little bit and then diverge down to a lake, but we'll see. Hope I don't have to backtrack.
After finishing the hike, I jumped back on the bike, rode the gravel back to the highway, then down the Cascapedia Valley to Campbellton, New Brunswick, for the night. For the third part of this little tour, I was heading to Mount Carleton, the highest point in New Brunswick and the highest point in the Maritime Provinces. It's part of the Appalachian chain of mountains, which run up the eastern side of the continent from Georgia all the way to northern Newfoundland. Because the mountain lies within one of New Brunswick's provincial parks, I had to acquire a day-use permit, which cost a whole $10, before heading off down another 11 kilometers of gravel road to the parking area at the beginning of the trail. Once again, the Goldwing proved perfectly capable, coping well with various potholes and areas of loose surface.
The human mind is a marvelous thing. Actually, any animal's mind is a marvelous thing. Walking along here, you know, how many thousands and thousands of footsteps, and I never really even think consciously about where my feet are going to go. I just guide them with my eyes, and they find a safe spot. Most peculiar. It's one of those things you never think about until you're doing it. Well, until you think about it. Each footstep has to be gauged. Is that rock going to turn over? If they step on that root, is it going to trip me? A million things to consider, all in a fraction of a second. And we've only got 2 legs. Imagine what it's like for most mammals that have 4 legs to place. Or squirrels and pine martens in the trees that have to gauge the branches and determine whether they can do the distance or if that branch will hold them. Incredible. Feels good to be at the highest spot in Maritimes. Oh, wow, chick-chocks. Nice.
This hut used to be a fire lookout station. Some lonely guy would stay here for weeks, searching the horizon for smoke. Now it's a handy place to eat lunch. These New Brunswick girls didn't object when I crashed their party.
On the way down, on the 4-wheeler trail. This is the way Alex and I came up 15, 16, 17 years ago. Somebody dropped this shoe on the trail up by the top of the Mount Carlton. And I could tell it was fresh. It had not been sitting there all night. It was bone dry. Looked as though it had literally just been dropped. And I just met a couple of people on the trail that told me that there were some heavily loaded girls a little bit further ahead. So I'm sort of racing, using it as an excuse really, racing to catch them up, see whether it was one of them that dropped it. I suspect it is. These are the girls that had a busy encounter with a moose last night. And they survived.
A quick lunch in the lodge near the park entrance, then back on the road. I'd climbed 3 rather lovely mountains and ridden about 1,600 miles on a 32-year-old bike. Not a bad way to spend 6 days. Not bad at all. I hope you enjoyed the video. Books of my various travels and motorcycle disasters are available on Amazon and Audible in digital, paperback, and audiobook formats. They're a good cheap read, so give them a whirl. Thanks for watching.